Eli Katunguka to talk to us. You know, he's championing this campaign. Kyambogo University is championing this campaign. And we want to hear from him why this holds so much to his heart. Okay, thank you. Before that, I'll invite a namesake of mine, Winfred Chosova, who is a university counselor, and who she will also be launching a magazine. She'll be telling us about it.
Thank you very much, namesake. Our dear VC, Professor Eli Katunguka Rwakshire, the keynote speaker, Dr. Ruth Senoni, Reverend Dr. Engineer Mwesigwa Emmanuel, Dr. Mujisha, and our other discussant, members of staff, Strong Minds Uganda staff, LEM Limited, the Guidance and Counseling Unit, staff from Students' Welfare Department, Safe Places, a rehabilitation center, our dear students, representatives from universities, our sister universities, all invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yes. I am Winfred Kyosaba Biribonwa, the acting senior university counselor. Before I go ahead, I would like to introduce the members who have been with us behind whatever is happening now as a climax. I know some of them are outside, but the representatives will help us at least wave. May I see members from Strong Minds Uganda? You can wave. Thank you for coming. LEM Limited. LEM Limited. Thank you. Guidance and Counseling staff of Kyambogo University. I am one of them. They are scattered because they are coordinating. Students' Welfare Department staff. Where are we? Thank you for coming. Our dear mentors who are here, I know many of you are still for school practice, internship, but the representatives, where are we? Thank you for coming. We also have the ICT team that has worked with us. They are still working. We have aerobics team that has been with us. We had aerobics leaders from LEM and then the Kyambogo University Department of Sports and Science. Unfortunately, they seem to be out. Okay, I welcome you all to Kyambogo University as we launch this anti-suicide campaign. We are launching it and we are not stopping from today. I imagine many of you have been asking yourselves, why are these people making noise since Monday? But it's not even only Monday. We started some time back. Last year, you remember very well, in 2021, we got 2 cases of our students who committed suicide. Personally, and with my fellow counselors, we get overwhelmed. Some people call and ask, Counsellor Winnie, Counsellor Victor, Counsellor Gladys, Counsellor Nora, Counsellor Irene, what is happening in Kyambogo University? And we don't have answers Why? Because those people who have committed suicide, we have not even had them in the counseling unit. Why? Because in most cases, some people will say, we are not aware. And the reason why we came up with this. So I am happy this is happening, and good to have management. Professor, I would like to thank top management, even those who are not here. Let them know we have been supported. The guidance and counseling unit has really been supported. Yes, we are a department. I mean, we are under the Students' Welfare Department. And at this moment, I would like to also say that the outgoing dean, Madam Mildred Tibananuka, has done a lot to mentor us, to support us. And we know very well that this activity is helping us to achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 3. What does it say? It seeks for good health and promote well-being. Suicide is an act of taking one's own life. We have known that. Our moderator has already talked about it. We are all bleeding. But what does that mean? We have a population. All of us are prone. Unfortunately, some people think we are addressing only students. No, we are also addressing the staff members. Because without the staff, the students will not be here. And if the staff does not have a cup full of water, what are you going to share with the students? So we are all prone. Our discussants will be in position to tell you those the statistics. I don't have to say it now. I may preempt them. But we are saying at Kyambogo University alone, we have had those cases. Some are known, others are not known. And as we talk here, it's to do with only Kyambogo, because where we come from also matter. Wherever the families we come from, the villages we come from, they also matter. So as we continue with awareness, we are trying to promote mental health. And why mental health? Because we want to cope with situations. We know there are situations we cannot control. We should cope with the situations. Be able to participate in all activities. If it is to do with academics, are you performing? If I am a staff, Winfred is here, is she performing? I may fail to perform because of anxieties, stress, depression, which are likely to lead us to suicide. So today's theme is hope never runs dry. Many of us are contemplating suicide because we have lost hope. But we are saying with hope, you can make it. You can make it. We wouldn't want to hear someone saying life is not worth living. We are saying if you are hopeful, you will make it. So we are here. We have been here for 3 days, and the activities we have participated in are suicide awareness. We have LAME Limited that has participated in suicide awareness, Strong Minds Uganda, the Guidance and Counseling Unit. And by the way, for the Guidance and Counseling Unit, they came up with materials. And these materials have very good information. You know, sometimes we don't know there is a problem until you have been told or you find it to yourself. So we have been talking about suicide. We have been having depression screening by Strong Minds Uganda. And apart from the screening and having individual counseling sessions. Strong Minds Uganda, on Monday when we started, they attended to 220 clients. On Tuesday, 280. By end of today, I am sure they will have gone, I think, to 300. I am sorry, I have not recognized Blood Bank Uganda. They are here also working with us. And on Monday, they got 35 units of blood. Tuesday, 57. Today, by the time I passed there, it was a bit early. There are many activities. They had moved to 20. So they are there to save lives. Let us donate and we save lives. There are some people who could be depressed because they do not have enough blood. LEM Uganda has also participated. I will continue updating you. By the time we came here, I had not got the details. I am sorry about that. The HIV Center, our Kyambogo University Medical Center, on Monday they had 75 clients who came for pre and counseling and testing. On Tuesday, 100 clients. Today, I see they are overwhelmed. That's why you don't see many of them inside here. The counseling unit has registered. When I say registered, it is both counseling and information giving, awareness raising. There are also tools we have been taking individuals through. On Monday, we registered 110. Tuesday, 107. I hope these numbers and more to come are going to impact as we fight suicide. We kick it out of Kyambogo University. And not only Kyambogo University. You know, there is a saying that seedlings make a forest. So if we sit back and leave the community of young students, students, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Yes, you are the future leaders. And as they are the future leaders, we need to work with them. We need to help them. I want to ask all of us here to embrace mental health well-being in our community. We join together and make dream of a suicide-free community. So I appreciate the guests who are to give us information, let us open our ears, and we understand what is happening and how we can handle our situations. I appreciate top management again, because without the finances, the support, accepting us to be here, we wouldn't have got this platform. Thank you very much. However, there have been challenges as we do all of this and the usual guidance and counseling we have at university. One, there has been inadequate awareness among the population. Why do we say this? Because sometimes, even when I'm just driving on the compound, you ask someone, do you know where the guidance and counseling unit is? Do you know, are you aware of guidance and counseling services in the university? Do you know anything about mental health? Some students and staff members will say, no, who are you? So we still have some gap in that. The second one is accessibility of the guidance and counseling unit. I have students with physical impairment. I'm so passionate about disability. You see our young gentleman here. I saw the student in a wheelchair. They cannot reach our offices. So it becomes hard for us to give them services. However, the counselors try their best. We try our best to look for them. We keep sharing our telephone numbers to make sure they get services. We don't say that we are not attending to them. They will testify. We also have inappropriate. Hello? Today we have Monday, yesterday, and today, we have enjoyed aerobics, and that is good for wellness. It's good for wellness, but we do not have appropriate space for that. The staff is inadequate. We have only 3 permanent staffs against all the numbers in the university, and no wonder the awareness is also lacking. The budget line, I will not say much about that as time is not on my way. And then we also have individuals who do not want to receive or to reach the counseling unit for services. We also lack specific skills. You have those students there, they are with hearing impairments. We do not have those skills, and I think we shall need something to happen. So our prayers: accessible premises, appropriate space, implementing the approved structure, support and fastening, proposal, telephone, counseling. This one I have to mention the students from engineering faculty, those students of Engineering Association. Is Regan here? They have worked with us. Please let us wave. I'm sorry, I am hurrying. He worked with us to come up with suicide awareness, mental health awareness, and the students came up with an app, but we are still there moving without finances. And we have also considered coming up with a call center, which is not yet in place. Why? Because students are very many, and we do not have enough staff members. So as I conclude, I would like to reemphasize the fact that there are many issues that cause anxiety, stress, depression, leading to suicide, and we would like to take weeks before we exhaust. We shall take weeks before we exhaust them, because most of them are part of our lives. Apart from the sessions in the unit, counselors have come up with Volume 2 magazine, where there are messages, and this specifically is to do with mental health. I am happy to note that even our keynote speaker has an article in that magazine. Mental health matters, knowledge and skills for service. Okay, this is a copy of the magazine. We are calling it Counselor's Guide 2020, and the theme is Hope Never Runs Dry. I would like to request, I felt the PRO would request the Vice Chancellor to launch this magazine. Yes. And the counselors in the unit who have come up with this, you could come closer. Thank you.
Yeah, my task is simple and clear, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. I invite you to launch this counselors magazine. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Everybody in your respective capacities, I'll go through the protocols when I speak. I want to congratulate the Counseling and Guidance Unit for coming up with this magazine. And I would like to urge everybody to read it. Because as they say, the theme of this one is hope never runs dry. So we must all remain hopeful that things are going to get better. So it's now my pleasure to launch this magazine and ask everybody to try and have a copy and read it. Thank you once again, the unit, for coming up with this innovation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
Thank you so much, everyone, for turning up on this sunny afternoon. Allow me to take this honor and privilege to invite our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Professor Eli Katunguka, to give us the welcome remarks.
Thank you very much. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Ruth Senoni, and all the facilitators, members of top management, and members of council. Do we have members of council? Yes. Former. This is a former member of council. But our KCCA representative, members of staff, students, members from the organizations that deal with guidance and counseling, as enumerated by the lady from the unit, members of the media, our beloved students, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to thank God for the gift of life. I thank God for the fact that He has kept us alive through the years. Depending on how old you have been alive, some of us have been alive for a very long time, and some of you are just starting to live. But we thank God for that gift of life, and for the protection accorded to us, especially during the COVID period. That was a very trying moment, especially during the first phase of COVID, when the country was locked down, I think in March 2020, and the subsequent waves that went through, because nobody was sure that we were going to come through all that. And thank our leadership in the country for having handled that pandemic the way it was handled, which ensured that we lost fewer lives in Uganda compared to other countries, both in East Africa and globally. I want to welcome you all to this public lecture, especially the students, members of top management. Special welcome to our facilitators, Dr. Ruth Senoni. Thank you very much for accepting to come and be with us. I think give her a round of applause. She's a very busy lady. She's been doing a lot of counseling in many units, many organizations, including Bank of Uganda. That's where we met first. So I want to thank you very much for sparing time to come and speak to us. Dr. James Mugisha, the Dean of Social Sciences. James has done a lot of research in mental health. I think he's one of the experts in this country, and we are really privileged to have him with us this afternoon, and for being a member of staff of the university. There's another gentleman who has many titles: Reverend, Engineer, Doctor, Emmanuel Mwesugwa, our chaplain. Thank you very much for agreeing to come. Reverend does a lot of shepherding young lives and also middle-aged ones through Kakumba Chapel. So we appreciate your support and service. And Madam Christine Nanyondo, thank you very much for sparing time to come. The theme of this public lecture, Hope Never Runs Dry, is very captivating. I don't know who thought of this theme. Who came up with this theme? Was it you or the whole team? Oh, thank you very much. This theme calls upon us to remember Ariaba of Siege. So after suffering, there will be peace. Because this suffering doesn't last forever. It must pass. So thank you very much. Colleagues, the university has grown big over the years. Big in stature, big in student numbers, because we now have a student population of 33,000 students. That's very big. And I sometimes look at them when they are going to class, and the line does not end. I wonder where all these people are going, especially after university. So we are in the business of empowering young people to be able to tackle the challenges of life when they live here. We are also aware that the living conditions, the conditions under which they live, are varied. During the times we went to school, to the university, I will not tell you the years in case you work back and then calculate my age. During our days, Dr. Ruth Senoni, students used to stay in the halls of residence on the university campus. And everybody had a room. So everybody would be accounted for. If you are not there, your neighbor will know you are not there for a reason, or if you were absent, people will know that you are not there. But these days, students live in all types of accommodation out there, dictated by economic conditions and also dictated by the fact that the population has grown and not all these students can be accommodated on campus. That's why we are thinking that in the next few years, when we try to mobilize resources, one of the areas to focus on is student accommodation on campus, so that most students can stay here and we can know where they are and when they come in and when they go. We may not be able to accommodate all of them, but we'll be able to accommodate a number of them. Now, this theme is about suicide awareness. The original theme was anti-suicide awareness. And some people from the community said, no, that is not good. You are being insensitive to people who have such challenges. So call it anti-suicide awareness, making people aware of the dangers of suicide, especially our young people. Suicide is not new to society. We've been with it for a long time. I remember when I was going to university first year, in the 1970s. Again, I won't tell you the year. My mother put me aside and told me that you should not kill yourself, irrespective of what happens on campus. Because those days, we used to hear that Makerere University students used to throw themselves in the pool and kill themselves, when especially they get many retakes, when they could not pass exams. So she told me, whatever happens, never kill yourself. So suicide is not new. It has been going on for a long time. And when we were at university, a colleague of ours, I think, had a problem with his relationship with his girlfriend. This young man, I think he was not very young. He had a girlfriend from Mulago nursing school. Those days, students from Makerere used to go to Mulago to get girlfriends. And we had a dance. And I think he invited this girl, and the girl refused to come. So he thought life had ended. He decided to kill himself. Unfortunately, he didn't do it properly. He jumped from the second floor and fell down, and only broke his legs and arms. He was taken to hospital and he recovered. When we come to find out, we found out that the girlfriend had let him down on a dinner dance. And he thought that was the end of the world. And recently, so this issue of suicide, people wanting to take their lives, can be attributed to many causes. I will not go through all those. I'm not an expert in those. You have brought the experts here. Recently, I had a press conference when we were discussing issues of the university. And I spoke for a long time, for about an hour. Then I opened up the debate to the media people. The first question they asked me, why are students dying in Kyambogo? I told them I have not talked about that. I want you to ask me questions about what I talked about. I said, why are students dying in Kyambogo? How many have died? I could not answer the questions correctly because I had not tuned my mind to it. But that shows you that the situation that was pertaining here, many of our students losing their lives, had caught attention of our stakeholders, external stakeholders. Also, there was a student, I think, who had committed suicide near engineering block. And one time Parliament was in session, and the Speaker of Parliament wanted to know why students were dying in Kyambogo. I tried to explain. She said, no, I'm going to put you in loud, and we tell Parliament why students are dying. So she put me on loud. I tried to explain. The interpretation they had was the student had tried to get his transcripts and failed, and that's why he had committed suicide, which was not the case. So there are many causes out there, so many pressures young people go through, challenges of employment, relationships, all those, which tend to make them think that life is not worth living, and they want to end their lives. And I'm glad that this talk is going on, and I hope that through this talk, some lives will be saved. Some students will understand that however difficult life is, you don't have to take it. One, because it is not yours. This life you have is not yours. So you don't have a right to take it. But secondly, when things are not going well, things will get better. They cannot remain like that for all the time. So just stick there and hope that life will really improve. I want to stop here and thank you all for this discussion. This is what universities should be doing. Identifying challenges of society, inviting key people to talk about these issues so that we can educate the masses, so that they can learn from the institution, so that the university can be part of society solving their challenges, in addition to providing the academics that we are well known for. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop my remarks here. Do I have any other detail?
No, sir.
No. Thank you very much.
All
I
right.
want to wish you very good discussions. I look forward to our presentations from our speakers. I'll stay around as long as I can, but I'll have to stay for the keynote. Then after that, I'll see what happens. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for the Vice Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Eli Katunguka, thank you so much for those wise words. But, Professor, unfortunately now, you won't just break your legs and survive and move on with your life. You will have to answer to police. It is now it's a criminal offense. 6 months in Kitalia or somewhere in Luzira. So before you attempt to jump, after you survive, you'll have to go and answer. All right. As the professor was speaking, I wanted us to take a moment of silence for the 3 students of Kyambogo University who lost their lives. A female student of social sciences in her final year. 23rd of April, we also lost a male student of mechanical engineering. 4th of March, we lost a student of automotive and power engineering. A moment of silence for those. May their souls continue to rest in eternal peace. Okay, our next speaker, I don't even know where to start from. I'll start from one thing that made me very proud. I like to see women shine out there. You know, they help us look ahead and say we are going in the right direction. This year, International Women's Day, the President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, awarded her the 2022 Golden Jubilee Medal. Before that, she served at Bank of Uganda for 22 years as a human resource specialist. 22 years. And human resource, that means you really know how to handle people. And you know how human resource is bad in some of these organizations. Not only that, she also served as the provincial president of Mothers Union at the Anglican Church of Uganda. And you know what stood out for me? She said, I was able to support and bring hope to families by providing psychosocial counseling, mentorship, and training. Isn't that beautiful? And that is going to be our keynote speaker this afternoon, Dr. Ruth Senoni. A very warm welcome. Please come and give your address. Where they can see you properly, I think there actually serves better, but or maybe not to burden you, you can come and stand here. It's okay. Is that okay? The media, the press, here is better? Okay, Dr. Ruth, here is much better. There. All right, Dr. Ruth. The gentleman. Thank you so much. I was worried that we wouldn't be able to carry it, but thank you.
The Vice Chancellor, Professor Eli Katunguka, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, the Chaplain, Reverend Dr. Engineer Mwesigwa, the Dean of Social Sciences, Ms. Nanyonjo, the discussants that are up here, the Acting Senior University Counsellor, Madame Winnie. I'm very proud of you and glad to be associated with you. All of you who are associated with whatever the counseling department is doing, we appreciate you. The staff and the students of Kyambogo University. I am so excited to be here and very honored to be part of this. Thank you so much for inviting me. I bring greetings from my dear husband, especially to the Vice Chancellor. Yes, my husband is Reverend Canon Dr. John Senoni, who was the former Vice Chancellor of Uganda Christian University. And I've been married to that one man for the last 37 years. We are happily married, still smiling at each other. So it's a good place to be. We are both retired now and enjoying our retirement. We have 4 grown children and 6 grandchildren. I worked, as you heard, with Bank of Uganda for 22 years, heading the counseling division, we call them divisions, under the Human Resource Department. So I was a deputy director in Bank of Uganda, working with staff in terms of their welfare and taking care of their counseling needs together with their families. I am so passionate about counseling. I don't know whether to call myself the first professional counselor in this country. Some people can challenge me over that, but yes, I have my master's and my PhD in counseling, and I've been doing counseling for quite a number of years. I think it's over 29 years now. Presently, I am a director, or I own the Bethel Counseling and Consultancy Center, which is located in Nadia, which I started when I retired. But otherwise, I think that's a bit of who I am. I'm still the president of Mothers Union, so don't take me off that one. And one of the things we've been doing today, which kind of delayed me, we've been launching the Fathers Union to be at the provincial level as well. So I've been with the Archbishop. Those of you who are church related, some of you may not be aware of these things, but that's okay. So my duty today is really to talk about suicide. And I'll be working with that gentleman. Usually I like to do things for myself, so I hope you'll come along with me. Now, I'm sad to hear that there are 3 students that passed on. And yesterday there was someone else, a young lady that you talked about, that also committed suicide in the dormitory with a rope. Someone else this morning, I got a message, burnt himself to death. And I do remember a student at Uganda Christian University that burnt himself and his girlfriend in a little house, locked themselves up, and he put it on fire. And they both burnt to death. Relational issues. So this suicide thing is what sometimes I call mental injury. The injury of the mental something inside there that we cannot sometimes see. So we call it invisible, but it is very, very devastating. Those of you who have seen some movies, you remember Robin Williams, very funny guy. He committed suicide. One that I've been quoting for quite a while, who died right after the exams of P7 came out, is Daphne Chimuli. She also passed on. Very sad. So suicide, as Winifred said, can affect each one of us, either directly or through somebody else who has done it. If we were to ask, do you know anyone who has committed suicide? A few hands would go up. Maybe, do you know someone who has thought about suicide? Your hand would shoot up. But one thing that we know is that suicide is preventable. And that when we raise awareness, we shall reduce the stigma, we shall encourage action, even though the rates may be increasing. There's something that we can definitely do. We always look to World Health Organization. What are they doing? So I'm pointing out that it recognizes suicide as a public health priority, and that it aims to increase awareness. What is what we're doing here in Kyambogo, and I really appreciate all that I've heard that has been done. That that's a public health significance, and that there's suicide and that there's suicide attempts. World Health Organization also aims to make suicide prevention a high priority on the global health agenda. It also aims to encourage and support countries to develop or strengthen comprehensive suicide prevention strategies, and also scale up provision and care for mental, neurological, and substance use disorders to help in prevention of suicide. Because those are some of the things that are related to suicide, as you will hear as I go along. It happens that most people who commit suicide are not thinking logically when contemplating suicide. They think that's the easiest way to go. It's kind of like the clients sometimes that come to me or come to us as counselors. And they say, the only thing that I'm thinking of is just to disappear. You know, I wish the earth could swallow me. I wish I could just disappear from the earth. And that really implies suicide. Or I want to get a visa and go to England and disappear there. You know? Become a different person because of all the things that I'm going through. So many are overwhelmed by their feelings and feel trapped. They don't know what to do. And COVID-19 has really, really made it worse. The psychological challenges that are associated with being at home, losing jobs, not having enough money, everything is going up. It takes you to the wall. And so that can lead to suicide at different age levels. So I'll go into definitions. What are the definitions? Suicide is death caused by injuring oneself with intent to die. So you injure yourself and you die as a result. Suicide attempt is when someone harms themselves with any intent to end their life, but does not die as a result of their action. Just as the Vice Chancellor said, he did not succeed. And that can be really tough, because when you don't succeed, it means you get back into where you were. And so how do you deal with that stigma? That person is the one who wanted to kill themselves. That person is the one who tried and failed. It's a very difficult place to be. Then we have suicide ideation. Usually that's what most people, if I were to ask in this room, they think about it at some point. It means you want to take your own life, or when you have thoughts about suicide. It's also one of the things we ask about depression. I'm glad there's a group that has been helping people around depression, because the depression rates in this country are overwhelmingly high. Everyone who walks into your office is showing signs of depression. And yet they don't even want to go for treatment. There's what we call passive suicide ideation, which occurs when you wish you were dead or that you could die, but you have no actual plans to do so. So you say, I wish I were dead, but really, okay, what's your plan? Nothing. Okay, that's not a bad place to be. But sometimes it becomes active, what we call active suicidal ideation. Thinking about suicide and having intent to commit suicide, including planning how to do it. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to a school. We used to do counseling in the school. And as I was winding up, a young girl came. She was in senior 2, and she kind of said, you know, I think I better end it all. And I said, what do you mean? Yeah, she had a plan. She had the pills all lined up. She knew when she was going to do it, and she was very sad for her mother, because she knew her mother would be very sad. So I had to take action. I did not leave that school until about 11 p.m. when I knew she was safe. What are some of the suicide statistics? Some of them have been mentioned. Suicide is the leading cause of death in the world for people aged between 15 and 29, which is the age that you at campus are at. More than 1 million people die due to suicide each year. And for each suicide, there are 20 who are attempting. That's a large number. Every 40 seconds, one person commits suicide. Now, sometimes for me, these figures don't make a lot of sense, because I'm not very mathematically oriented. But I happened to marry a guy who did a PhD in mathematical statistics. Oh yeah. So I don't so I do not do math anymore. I just sit there and they do it for me. You know, I teach, I've been teaching counseling at master's level. I did teach, it's been over 20 years now, teaching at Makerere. I've not really taught in Kyambogo. I don't know why. But currently I'm doing some few classes with UCU. And so when I finish marking, and you know, I just pass over the papers to my husband and tell him, please do the rest. So he adds up, he makes percentages. Oh, aren't I lucky? Yeah, but for some of you, this really gives you a figure in your head. 1 million people, 20 people suicide attempts, 40 seconds, one person committing suicide. 1 in every 100 deaths worldwide is the result of suicide. Now, you may not know that there are some that are not recorded, because it's a very shameful thing Because right when we got a message about the little girl who had died in one of the schools in eastern Uganda, immediately another one came, or she collapsed. They're trying to change the story. I don't know whether that's true, but, many people try to change the story so that it's not about suicide. 12.2 million seriously thought about suicide in 1 year, 2020. 3.2 million made a plan for suicide. 1.2 million attempted suicide. So if you have a population of 33,000 students, as the Vice Chancellor told us, what are the rates then? They must be high, especially in this age group. In Uganda, the suicide rate was 4.6 per 100,000 people. That was 2018. Other facts. Women attempt suicide more often than men, but men are more successful. So when a man determines something, sometimes they really go out and do it. But women, sometimes they are threatening you. I will kill myself if you don't give me money, if you don't pay for my, Yeah. Suicide remains the leading cause of death among university students. A study was shown. A study was done. Suicidal behaviors increased during COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, the closure of schools. It led to heightened anxiety. It led to heightened depression. And then another fact is that those who previously attempted suicide are at a higher risk for future attempts. So then the question is, why do people turn to acts of self-destruction? First of all, it's to escape. I just want to escape. I just want to go. I just want to shut it down. Secondly, I want to punish that person who is punishing me, who has become so bad to me. My mom, my dad, the VC, the professor who is teaching me. Maybe sometimes it's because of guilt. Attention-seeking behavior. There are many young people who are seeking attention from various things. Maybe from their girlfriends, boyfriends, parents, from the president, from the nation. See me, I'm here. I am suffering. See where I live. Sometimes the loss of a loved one is so is so deep, you just want to go with them. I want to join the person who has died. I lost my father about 25 years ago. I think I can say he was my best, closest friend. He loved me. I'm the only girl in that family of 5 other boys. And so we were really close. He took care of me. He made sure I was okay. When I was in Gayaza, he was there for me. He would come and visit me, not once, not twice, but many times, with a lot of grub that I had a lot of food to give out to other people. So they all looked out for him coming to visit, because then they would know we would share the food. And then one day, I had my last born was about 1 year when he passed on, because my last born is now 26. And he just went, not even saying goodbye. I'm like, how can you do that? So that's where you feel like, maybe I should also die. What will my life be like without this person? So sometimes it's a girlfriend, sometimes it's a spouse, sometimes it is a father or a mother. Then sometimes you feel you are becoming a burden to others. My mom, there's a family that I worked with, and this girl disappeared for about 3 months. Others disappear and then kill themselves. And so when I asked her, so why? Why did you run away from home? She said, my mom is a single mother. But every minute, every single day, she keeps on saying, if you were not here, I would have had a car. If you were not here, I would have been okay. I would not be living in this house. I would have money. But because of you. So I said, well, I'm going to just run away because I'm a burden to my mom. I'm sure you've heard that. Single moms always complaining about why you need money for coming to school, why you need new shoes. Why can't your shoes last 3 years? They can't. And sometimes it is also to avoid suffering and other effects of disease. You know, you find out that you have COVID-19. Some people passed on because they thought they are going to die anyway. Others because of HIV. But you know, we are here to say there is hope. Why? I was working in the bank for all those years, and we put up programs. I'm so happy about Winnie and what she's doing, because it reminds me of what I was doing in Bank of Uganda. You see what the problem is, and then you come up with awareness. You talk about it. You go 1 week saying this and that until everybody gets it. You do pamphlets and you send them out to everyone's desk. That's what we do. And everyone gets to know. I can say that, yes, there are HIV star people in the bank up to date, but they are well taken care of. And the deaths, there are no deaths anymore for several years. No deaths due to HIV. So, sometimes you're avoiding suffering when something can happen and can certainly change. What are the risk factors? What are the risk factors? There are many, and I may not have exhausted them, and I'm sure the discussants will also bring up many. But what comes to the forefront is academic failure, academic problems, relational breakups and separations. You know, you look at this girl and you're like, if I don't go out with this girl, I'm going to die. And indeed, you want to die because you didn't go out with that girl. So when she says, no way, and let me tell you a little bit, when I was on campus, Makerere University, I would look around because, you know, we are looking for people who we want to marry at some point. You are in your second year and you're thinking, yeah, it would be good to be married to someone. Then you look around and you're like, There's no one in sight. In fact, some of the boys at that time used to walk around in slippers. And you're like, really? You are a university student. You come out of your university hall wearing slippers. Who do you think will marry you? You know? So sometimes you look around and you're like, there's no one to marry. The only thing I'm going to do is to just kill myself. No. So breakups, separations, harassment, bullying. Sometimes it's genetic. Genetic how? It's like some people are weaker at handling difficult things. And sometimes they don't want to face anything. So they decide to go the easy way. Substance and alcohol abuse is one of the biggest causes. It can impair your judgment and may make the person engage in riskier behavior. Then, of course, psychological distress caused by loss, caused by loneliness, caused by heartbreaks, and then other diseases and disabilities, also including depression, mental disorders like depression, bipolar, autism, schizophrenia, anxiety. All those are risk factors. Doesn't mean when you have that, understand me well, but they are risk factors. Financial difficulties, you don't have money for tuition. History of abuse. We've dealt a lot with abuse. Some people have been abused as children. From 5 years old, you are sexually abused. And you get to a point where you're like, I am tired. Because a person who is sexually abused at 5 years is likely to be abused many more times. So you come to campus and your professor, I hope they're not here, your professor is saying, for marks here, do this. And you're like, goodness, this thing is following me. I am tired. You get into marriage and it's following you. You become old like me and it's still following you. So you get depressed. Previous suicide attempt is also a risk factor. And then sexual orientation is another one. You know, in Uganda, homosexuality is not acceptable. It's not in our law. It's not acceptable. Full stop. Now, if you come in and you have that orientation, hey, it can be very, very difficult because nobody accepts you. Everybody is saying, who are you, how come, and you know, and it can be one of the triggers. So warning signs, just watching out for your friends, watching out for yourself. Maybe there are changes in eating and sleeping habits, very related to depression. Loss of interest in school, related to depression. So depression becomes a major thing that we look out for when it comes to suicide. Neglect in the way you look, obsession with death and dying, You know, there was someone who I was working with, and he kept on looking up all the articles about death and dying. How do you kill yourself? What can you take? How people have died. You know, so you are like, madam, mister, why are you going that way? Some people give verbal hints like, I won't trouble you anymore. Don't worry, I won't trouble you anymore. Now, the impact is also big. There's long-term health issues such as depression. Can move on to the next one. Long-term health issues such as depression and other mental health concerns. Yeah, I already said if you try, then the depression can become bigger and bring in other mental health concerns. What about the surviving family member? Think of your mother in the village, and they are bringing your body from Kyambogo University that you hung yourself. She sold her cow, she sold her, and now they are taking your body back because you imagine that one. They experience anger, they experience shock, they experience guilt. Maybe I should have sold the other cow also. And anxiety. And of course, the medical costs are high to take care of you during the period when you are trying to recover. There are methods used. I'm talking about the methods, not so that you can go and use them, but the knowledge of suicide methods helps in prevention and provides strategies such as restriction to those things so that you cannot do suicide. So, for example, in your dormitories, we will not allow you to have ropes. Why do you want to have a rope? Oh, it ties up my mattress. But it is a danger because I can tie myself up on a bed and kill myself like that little girl yesterday did in the dormitory. Many die by hanging. Many die by poisoning. That's why you shouldn't go into a pharmacy and be able to buy any kind of medication that you want. Although in Uganda, I don't think there is a law against that. I can go and buy Valium as much as I want. I can go and buy these heavy sedating medicines and use them. So it is not good. So that means I'll be coming to it. There are things that need to be put in as policies. What can Kyambogo University do in terms of policies to enable the methods not to work? Firearms. Those are the methods. And ingestion of pesticides. Something that I need to add on here is burning by fire and jumping off roofs and buildings. Those are other ways. Suicide survivors, those who survive or those who have children or people close to them that have survived. Suicide is the most difficult bereavement crisis for any family to face and resolve in an effective manner. For any family. So keep that in mind, that even if I have thought of suicide, but because of my mother, because of my father, because of my brother, I am not going to do that. That was said by Cain in 1972. Losing a loved one to suicide is a traumatic experience and can lead to what we call complicated grieving. Grieving that doesn't end. Because, you know, we deal a lot with grief and loss. And we say, yes, you lose someone, like I lost my dad. And, you know, after some time, yeah, there's shock, there's disbelief. Then you bury, then you cry. Then after 1 year, you cry again, then you cry. But some people, the grieving goes on for so long. They even can't work. So that is what we call complicated grieving. And then it becomes a major life disruption. Because someone has died to suicide. Maybe it's your friend. And, you know, she told you about it, but you didn't really think seriously about it. So you feel guilty. I've lost this, my friend. Think about the 3 students. They were living in some dormitory with someone. They were sitting next to someone. Maybe they did mention that they were going to take their lives, but you didn't take them seriously. So survivors, those are losing. Then you have suicide survivors. They face what? I've already talked about this. They face shame, they face stigma, they face abandonment. Most people abandon them. They face guilt, they face blame, they get low self-esteem as a result of that. And there's a lot of anxiety and fear. So I can go on and on talking about what the impact and everything around it. But now we want to turn to hope. You know, hope never runs dry. And it's so interesting because in our church of Uganda, I told you I am the Provincial Mothers Union president. Provincial meaning I'm the president of Mothers Union in Uganda. The 37 dioceses that we have, each of them has a president. But now I'm the president of the president. So here I am Excellency. But you know, the theme that the province decided to come up with is that hope, there is hope beyond affliction. And it comes from Lamentations chapter 3. So I quoted it there. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. If I was doing a sermon, which I'm very good at doing, I would go that direction. But today, I am not in a sermon. But that's the best way to go. That everything can disappear, everything can go bad, but we always have to hope in the Lord. He is the one who created us before we were. It says that he put us together and knit us together and then put us in our mother's womb. He said he put the inner parts. Think of the inner parts, the liver, the heart. Do you know how stuffed they are in there? But they are working. He put them together and then put the top part on, and then he put you in your mother's womb and he said, you be. So what? You don't have any reason for taking your life because you did not put it, you did not set it out at all. You had no input in your life. So hope is a passion for the possible. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness. And that in all things, it's better to hope than to despair. So, I believe that the counseling unit at Kyambogo University is creating hope through action. Reminding us that there are alternatives to suicide. So whenever you think about it, there is something else you can do other than suicide. Is that clear? Shall I repeat that? Whenever you think about suicide, just know there is something else you can do besides suicide. Do I get a yes? So, our part is to give hope to those who are struggling and support those who have lost their beloved ones. You know, I love what I do. I'm a teacher by profession. I did education at university. Are there any teachers here? And I'm a teacher of English language, English literature, and geography. At that time, they used to allow us to do those three subjects together. I think these days you cannot. So I graduated as a teacher, and I left Gayaza High School determined that I was going to be a teacher. Remember, I was at Gayaza, the best school in the world, and I was and I was doing extremely well. So when they asked us, we looked at the choices we had made, I put education as first choice. And Miss Warren, who has passed away 3 days ago or so, our former head mistress, she called my parents and she said, Ruth cannot do education or put education as first choice because she is extremely good. She will have to do law. And I said, I don't want to do law. I do not want to do law. And my parents stood by me and I put education first choice. That's why I am one of those people called excellent teachers. You take it or leave it, but I know. And you know, during my teaching, I taught at Gayaza, I taught at Makerere College School, and that's where I tapped into counseling. Like they told me, Ruth, go and talk to a girl in S2 who is struggling in her academics. And so I went and talked to her, and I saw her improving. And I thought, wow, this is an amazing thing. You talk to someone and something changes, you know? So it was at the same time that my husband moved on from being a professor at Makerere University in his statistics and said he wants to serve the church. So we went to the US for him to do his studies. And I said, I'm not leaving the US with nothing. So as he studied, I also did my master's in counseling. Why? Because that little girl in S2 showed me that you can give hope to those who are struggling. And guess what? That's what I've been doing all this time. Someone walks into my office, in fact, my son, who is an architect, told me, Mommy, your clients are so different from mine, because mine come into my office with a lot of money and they have a building that they want to put up, and I make the building for them and they pay me and they go out. The definitions when you're thinking, because we can't treat a dead person. How do you treat? I'm thinking. I have an active plan. What do? Talk therapy. Work with a therapist to explore why you are suicidal and how to cope. Then treat that health challenge. Is it alcohol, substance abuse? And many people get into abuses of this kind on campus. There are some disorders that you get into. You need to also look at your lifestyle and change it. Some of you are living over the edge lifestyles. You know, you are walking out. I remember, you know, for us in UCU, we are a bit more prayerful, I think, than Kyambogo. But I remember, you know, we were in a staff fellowship, and it was brought to our attention that there is a bar. I think I can't remember what the name is, but somewhere near UCU, where children would go and they would do hideous things. I think we even had one suicidal case in that area. So we decided to pray. We said we are going to pray that something changes. So every time we would drive, we determined, all of us in that meeting said, you drive by and you pray as you go. We are going to get rid of this bar, which is very near the university. Lord, we pray that this bar may disappear, that this bar may close, that this bar, you know, it's very bad for their business, but anyway, it was it was not good for our students, okay? So we saw that bar closing. I mean, there used to be cars, lots of cars, and children on Friday, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning, you'd find them totally drunk. They don't know where they are. Now, that needs a lifestyle change, because you don't even know anything happening now. You can't make a decision. Then medical attention also for depression. Ladies and gentlemen, whenever they say there is depression that they see in you, please don't take it, take it seriously. and deal with it. Sometimes it's not always medication. It's to deal with that issue that is working in your life. World Health Organization came up with 4 areas that they are looking at as an approach to suicide prevention. You can see them there. Limiting access to means of suicide. So you limit the things I can use to commit suicide. 2, interacting with the media for responsible reporting. I'll be talking about that. Fostering social-emotional life skills in adolescents. Life skills like decision-making. You know, it starts when I talk about parenting in some of my talks that I do. It's like you need to give your child the opportunity to make choices, to make decisions. Going to the bank to pay the money for the child. Honestly. So when it comes to things like this, it becomes very difficult because the child cannot make a decision. And so takes the easy way out. So we need to teach life skills as a way of preventing. I can make a decision and I can stand with my decision. I am confident. I don't need anybody to tell me that this is the way to go. I know what I'm doing. See, if you do that, if you are, then people won't take advantage of you. And then the 4th one, early identification, including assessment, including management of that assessment, and then the follow-up of people who are affected. So if you come to me in my counseling room and there is some kind of ideation, some idea about suicide, I will follow you up. I will assess you. I will say, what is it? Is there a plan? What do you intend to do? And I will keep with you until I know you are fine. Those are the services that we provide. There's what we call postvention. This is an organized response in the aftermath of a suicide. Let's say the 3 people who died. It's this community that has been affected. So, how do you deal with facilitating the healing of the individuals that have been affected by the loss? Those people in the dormitory, those people in the department, those people that she lived with, there needs to be something to help them heal. What about mitigating the other negative effects of exposure to suicide? So the 3 people, the Dean of Social Sciences is here. Did you discover what is it that caused that? Maybe it is something that is happening to many, many other people. So it becomes a research place where we can mitigate, to get the results so that we can mitigate those effects. And then also to prevent suicide among people who are at high risk. I've already talked a little bit about enabling policies. So I am focusing on investing in psychosocial support. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, maybe one of the people with the t-shirt can turn around so that we read what it says behind you. What does it say? Just let them read it. Make mental health for all a national priority. Now we are saying make mental health a priority for this university. And one of the ways is that we invest in psychosocial support. We also create protective environments. Are our students safe from suicide? We are now talking about suicide only. Are they safe? Are they well protected? What about the reporting and messaging? What about the policies that help us identify? If I'm a teacher teaching in class and I identify, where do I go? Who do I tell? You talked about the call center. You talked about the telephone. Who do I call when I'm in crisis? What if someone is excessively possessing the alcohol. What is the policy? Are we allowed? Forget about religion and everything. This is mental health. So when we come to psychosocial support, I just want to give a little definition. Any type of local or outside support or action that aims, you can move on so that they see, that aims to improve, to protect, or promote psychosocial well-being or treat mental health disorders. Sebo, move with me. Back. Oh. Okay, maybe that's not in there. Okay, so psychosocial support, let me just describe it. Any type of local or outside support or action that aims to improve, to protect, or promote psychosocial well-being or treat mental health disorders. Do you see how we are starting right at the bottom to be able to get to the fact that we are preventing suicide? So we are addressing that person's emotional, that person's social, mental, and spiritual needs so that we can have positive human development. That's what psychosocial support is all about. And in psychosocial support, that's where counseling falls. We empower individuals so that they can be well. We deal with their affected thoughts, we deal with their affected moods, we deal with their affected feelings and their beliefs so that they can cope with whatever is happening to them. And the purpose, oh, you found it. The purpose for psychosocial support, we prevent and alleviate distress and suffering from more severity. But we have to first know that there is some distress before we can alleviate it. So I thank you, the counseling department, that you're doing a lot. That 33,000 people, you have to devise a way of making sure that you reach each one and every one. So push yourself into classes. Even if it's for 5 minutes, ask for 5 minutes. I'm sure the VC will not disappoint you in that. And say, I'm just saying 5 things, and walk out. Do you know me now? Yes, I'm Winnie Chosaba. Yes, I am the counseling. Where is the department? It is over there. Yes, I know I worked in the bank for 22 years, but I had to do awareness like almost every day. It meant going to different individuals. It meant going to different departments. It means pushing into the big people's offices and saying, here I am here, I'm still working. So addressing ongoing problems, helping clients return to normalcy, and helping individuals and communities cope or accept whatever it is that they are going through. Healing emotional wounds in disasters, in pandemics, dealing with their health problems, and rebuilding relational structures. This is where I love counseling. I support counseling. I love counseling. I will do counseling for as long as I can. It's a professional relationship. It empowers. Really, that's what we do. You come, we don't tell you what to do, but we empower you so that you can deal with your mental health. You can be well, so that you can, through working through your education, you can go through it successfully. Yes, it's very, very intense, but it is possible. So when there are indications of suicide, one, we assess, have they considered a suicide method? What is the history? So this can be done by anybody. If your friend comes and tells you, I'm dying, I'm going to kill myself, say, what method are you going to use? So when they say, yeah, I've bought a rope, here it is, I've bought some medicines here, there, I've got some petrol. So that is serious. What is the history? Do they have any abuse? What is the mental health challenge? Are they drunk? Are they on drugs? Are they in distress of any kind? Do they have depression? All those are very, very high risks. Then you have to diffuse the idea of suicide. That's your part. Diffuse it. You know what diffusing is? If there's a bomb and they come and make it not work, exactly that's what you are going to do. Hold that person by the hand. Call their mother. Call their nearest kin. and tell them this girl has said she wants to kill herself. Come now and take her home. If she or he persists with the ideation, contact the family, a close relative, or the authorities. Now we have media here, and they report. So what are the hope messages supposed to look like? What are the prevention messages supposed to look like? Because how we communicate about suicide makes a difference. We are supposed to provide hope, not discourage people from seeking help. 2, we are supposed to celebrate life, not romanticize death. Because some people feel like, oh, death is good, is nice, therefore, let me go. No, we are and I love what the VC started with. We want to thank God because we are alive. I don't know exactly how you said it, but we thank God for life. You should always wake up thanking God that I can breathe, especially when we went through COVID. Some people couldn't breathe. And then help people understand that suicide is preventable. So anytime you as media people, you as people in the counseling unit are sending out messages, they must be about hope. You know, these WhatsApps are sometimes not so good. I've got some, you know, I think on our counseling forum, we are so many of us, and sometimes they just make us aware of what's happening in our country. They've sent little things of people jumping off roofs, and you see them coming down and dying. That is very traumatic to see. So help people understand that, yes, this is a WhatsApp message. Someone has killed themselves. But what is the message? I'm not sending you to kill yourself. Because sometimes the messages we give can actually say, oh, they've even told us the methods, you know. Let me go and experiment. No, that's not it. We want to say suicide is preventable. Mental health is treatable. Other preventable strategies: limit access to lethal methods such as guns, drugs, poisons. So what is your policy on having medications in the dormitories? I know sometimes some of the people live very different places, but within the campus, think about that. You have a clinic or a hospital. So what do you allow in the dormitory? Because I can pick up someone else's medicine. What about treatment of mental disorders, improving economic conditions? So I'm just throwing out these to you, and I think the discussant will give you more detail on some of the things that I've spoken about. Teaching life skills, building strong families. That's what we do in Mothers Union. I've been doing that for the last 8 years, particularly for Mothers Union. We go to the depth in the villages, and what are we doing? We are building strong families that can support themselves. We're helping them be clean. We're helping them get methods of managing their lives and being able to buy soap, being able to buy food, and or grow food, whatever it is. Improving relationships and empowering women. So at a personal level, it's important to identify triggers. What is it within me that is causing me to say I want to commit suicide? Then take care of yourself. Is it work, academics, relationships that are giving you trouble? Balance them. Get support from family. Get support from friends and community. Be active in what's happening in the university life. I think Winnie said that. And then relax. Enjoy. Enjoy the time you are having here. You are not going to have it again. We left university many years ago. But we enjoyed our time. I was in Africa Hall. Really had a blast. But at the same time, we did very well. I told you I was a very good student, and I continue to be. Even at my PhD level, I was given an award for being the best student. I got A's throughout. So relax. Relax. So what are the actions that can be done? I also run through them very easily. Is there access to mental health services? Do people know where to go? The counseling available? What about family settings? How are they? We may be dealing with things at university, but my family back at home is not very, very strong. What happens? Strengthening that support. Then stress prevention and management, prevention of gender-based violence, empowering both men and women to handle things, security, freedom, rehabilitation for those who need it. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 17 says, "And I will restore you to health and heal your wounds." God will restore you and heal your wounds. That one I can attest to, because I know the God I serve. These people I don't know, Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Dean, I don't know them. I have no guarantee that they can do anything for you. But I know the God who can help. So always turn to him in the way you know him and tell him, God, I am suffering. I'm in affliction. This guy has refused to marry me. This one has taken my money. This one has refused to buy me the phone I wanted. Don't kill yourself. So find a safe space so that you can better cope, so that you can make informed decisions, that you can deal with stigma, so that you can adhere to medications. Be focused on focus on psychosocial support, emotional and practical support for individuals and families, and then restore strong families. Some of you have already got families. How are you doing there? Is your child safe? Is your child happy? Are they learning from you? That's the strong family that we are talking about. And lastly, I just have questions for you. The last slide. Yeah. Your theme, which says hope never runs dry. Next slide. How do I support? Next one. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I sent that last night and I added in something this morning. How do I support my fellow students? Is the first question. I'm a student. How do I support my fellow students? 2, what does the administration, or what will the administration do to mitigate the risks of suicide? That's the VC and his team. That's the counselors and your team. Mitigating the risks. Do you have a comprehensive prevention plan? What can I do as an individual to take care of my invisible injury? I am stressed, I'm anxious, I am angry, but no one knows. It's my invisible injury. What can I do as an individual to make sure that it is taken care of? That is mental health. That's what the counselors are here for. That's what the psychosocial support is all around us. So how can we as a community, how can we as a family, because you are a family of Kyambogo, you are a family in your own little home, how can you support anti-suicide? What messages are you going to take out? What about the media? You as media students, some of you, what will you do to ensure that the right messages go out, the messages of hope? And supposing I have ideation, I have ideas about suicide, where do I go? Where do I turn? Who do I talk to? They're telling me strong minds. Where is strong mind? Where is safe? I don't want to go to rehab. If I say I have depression, they will take me to Butabika. No. So, a safe place where I can talk about it. I thank you.
Another round of applause for Dr. Ruth Senoni, ladies and gentlemen. Powerful message. Check on your friends. Dr. Ruth, these millennials have a very famous tagline. They say, check on your friends, check on your buddies, make sure you check on your friends. Some of the biggest strong points, take homes for me, really, ideation. I wonder how many of you have thought about the idea of killing yourself. Maybe just even in passing, I want to die. Today was hard, I can't handle. So check on your friends. Don't just wait for the message on Friday and say, what's happening? And they start looking for the ballas. Check on your friends. All right, now we are going to have another conversation. We continue our conversation. I'd like to remind you that we're streaming online, so those who are very active on social media, Twitter, Facebook, the hashtag is Kyambogo University Public Lecture. Right down there you can see, make sure you tag us so we'll be able to continue the conversation. I'd like to invite Dr. Mugisha James. Dr. Ruth mentioned something about what Kyambogo University is doing, and I read up somewhere where you were talking about the mental health care project. So definitely looking forward to this conversation. He's the Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences. He has a PhD in suicidology and also happens to be a clinician at Butabika Hospital. Very warm welcome to you, Doctor.
Thank you, organizers, Vice Chancellor, Professor Katunguka, our able and very competent keynote speaker. I've heard about you for 20 years. Now I've been lucky to see you today, after longing for that a very long time. Professor Maria, directors, fellow academicians, the NGOs that are supporting us, the student community, ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite a different speaker, and when my Vice Chancellor invited me, and I saw I was going to debate with a Reverend Doctor, and then I also know a little bit about her through gossip. Here person, mothers, mothers, what? In union. And I'm a man of shrines, in the true sense of it, because I work with spiritual healers. Some of you have read about my work in northern Uganda. It's a lot of endeavor using. So I said, is Vice Chancellor really a serious person to pit me with these people who are in a different world, and I'm also in a different world? But I know is going, and time is up. But I want to give him one message that he has to give to the parliamentarians. Where there's development, there is suicide. Because of what she said, you increase the means to lethality. These buildings that you are putting up, they are the right means for us to commit it. No one wants to die a painful death. Those were the traditional people. I want to go on Karina number 10 and throw myself down. Gone. So the more you develop Kyambogo, I'm talking as a clinician and as a person who has a PhD in this field, the more guns that Americans have given to themselves. You've seen the way they messed up themselves this month. The means to lethality are very clear. So now you are going to put up more hostels, so we shall see more suicides. But now the issue is what she talked about. As we develop, then there must be safety nets. There must be what? There must be control measures. The buildings must be guarded, must be monitored, must be patrolled. So I think that was a very good message for you to portray before Parliament, that you are a victim of your own what? Development. So thank you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, for developing us, but also thank you for increasing the means to lethality. But then the other aspect, before you go, Mr. Vice Chancellor, my patients will take you to court when you use the word committing suicide. It is judgmental. If she said they are sick, they are not under the control of their faculties. So if I'm not under the control of my faculty, then how do I commit? So that means that I'll start my presentation with language issues. With language what? Issues. Those that are under extreme pain, what in the field of psychology and mental health we call patability. They have what is called malaise. Snedesman calls it what? Malaise. And the other word that we can simply use is that if we look at each one of us, we have a mental window through which we see things. But those who die of suicide, all their mental windows close. They do what? They close. By the time you choose death, you know life is so sweet. So what? By the time you choose death, that means that all your mental windows are what? And that's what in science they call constriction. You are under constriction. You don't have, your psyche does not have eyes anymore. Now that's why the word committing becomes very judgmental. If I'm blind, can you blame me for knocking this thing? Yesterday I had a friend, and that's why I'm feeling a little weak. We worked the whole day, the whole night, and that's typical of clinicians. And they was telling me, I've asked my boy. The boy says he has never done drugs. I said, how did you start? What words were you using? I asked him whether he abused the drugs. I said, now, take an hour and go back to him and ask him whether he has ever used or he has ever helped himself with what? Drugs. Good enough, this man was respectful and went back to the guy. Do you sometimes use? And then the guy says, yeah, I think, Daddy, when I'm so lonely, I use. So that means that even the word abusing drugs is judgmental, isn't it? And when I was a PhD student, to get ethical approval, they tell you to go to Makerere Institute of Languages to translate your tools. So I went to the institute and translated the tools. And I went to the Mpiji among young people. And I used the words she was using. I'm not trying to embarrass you, Mama. We are just learning. Do you sometimes plan to kill yourselves? Waiter. And these boys were saying, no, we don't kill ourselves, but we take away our life. So to me, who is trained in the field of suicide, I don't use the word kill. Because it's judgmental. I said, the youth, what do you prefer to use if we are to have this conversation? They said, okwejao. Kwejao. And from that time, the words became less what? Offensive. I improved my vocabulary on suicide over that. Now, as I start to speak about this, why am I being too academic? We know we are trained differently, they are trained differently, I'm trained differently. So I'll take a more of a clinical angle. She's my supervisor, Dr. Professor Maria. I'm the Dean of Social Science. I'm called Mujisha. And I have a PhD in Suicidology. So I'm lucky that I'm always a lonely species. There are very few people who have such a qualification. But now it is also my time to recruit you guys into such a very boring area. And when I went to study Suicidology, one of my friends, Dr. Njomjen, called my wife and said, Harriet, would you like to have such a husband who is going to talk about death all the time? And my wife called me and said, but why did you choose those things? I also feel flat about you. Can't you change? You've been doing malaria. That means maybe these are callings. I don't think I'll ever leave suicidology all my life. It's a commitment, and I think it's a calling that we need to talk about. Now, the global vagueness about the definition of suicide is one of the biggest threats to management and prevention. You've already seen, I'm not happy with my sister here. She says commit and kill. So if you are in a clinical session, I'll tell her, can you go? You're already too judgmental. So the global definition of suicide itself is very, very vague. And I don't want you to wake up and say, I'm using the WHO definition of suicide. Good enough, they are also bold enough to put a preamble and say, maybe it does not even apply to low-income countries like Africa. I've been reading an article by Diego De Leo, one of the dinosaurs in this field. And he looked at the so many definitions that exist. There are over 14. And to come up with one that is acceptable is the biggest challenge we have. She's talked about someone being arrested for committing suicide. I'm being careless by using the word, but I want to leave into your nomenclature. But just because we have a wrong definition in our legal books, when you have TB and malaria, no one takes you to court. When you have depression, no one takes you to court for having fallen sick. Now, when I also express my desire to go, you take me to court. I said I'm talking like, I'm not going to talk like them. I'm a clinician. Their conversation is different from mine. But if I have my intention to go, and then you take me to court, are you achieving anything? This takes me to another level then. That it is okay to think about suicide. But the problem is, when it is chronic, it's what? All of us think about suicide. And all animals think about suicide. Even elephants commit suicide. And the unfortunate bit, now when I see people who are more eligible, and my boss is here, the bigger the brain, the higher the chances. We say in the field of suicidology that those who don't commit suicide are only idiots. That's why you can't see suicides in pigs. I'm talking like a clinician and an academician. So now the more we develop, and the brains, they become bigger, the bigger the risk factor, isn't it? And that's why you'll see that suicide rates also increase with education. With what? Education levels. Because the knowledge of rights also become what? Bigger. The knowledge of what? Rights become what? Bigger. To those who have not gone to school, they might not have right to life. But those who are gone to school, they have that. So I've talked about that. And then that takes me to something that we need to look at very seriously. If you look at suicide itself as an act, we normally say it has dimensions. This lady has given us the dimensions. But there are three things that are very pertinent with suicide, as this lady has talked about. I'm just crossing a T and dotting an I. There must be patability. There must be what? Patability is that annoyance that is continuous. But in psychology or the field of mental health, they call it a psychological pain, the way she told you. And it is an ache because it is extreme. And then, suicide will never be completed unless there are means to lethality. Means to what? This girl that we are talking about today, that we are reading about in the newspapers, at least she had a rope. Minus a rope, there wouldn't be a suicide. Minus alcohol, which people take excessively. In the developed world, what people do is to use drugs. excessive doses. Now, as society continues to develop, the things that make us develop compatibility also increase. And one of the most obvious ones is what she talked about. We are no longer a society, we are no longer family. And you stand alone in all circumstances and in all contexts. But you have this excessive pain that society is not seeing and is not able to understand. And the means of the authority are obvious. They are everywhere. I went to Soroti to research about suicide not many months ago. And the society was blaming it on the liver. That the liver sacrifices itself. That most of the youth go and die in what? In the liver. Those are the means to what? To lethality. So when you look around in Kampala here, what is not available? Is it alcohol? Is it guns? Is it pesticides? Is it tall buildings? What is not available? Everything is available. And I liked her when she concluded that the future is maintaining good mental health. Good what? As long as these means are available. Like now, if I want to die in the next 10 minutes, I will achieve it. Kyambogo, the means are everywhere. What is stopping me is because I have proper... Dr. Senoni, I like that reflection. We are all vulnerable. We are all in the same situation. But the difference is that you have proper mental what? Mental. Now, if I move away from that, I want to give much of the time to Reverend Engineer to give us engineering of suicide. I want us to have 4 major issues that will be a take-home message for all of us. And relate what she has talked about. Why don't we look at suicide as a cry of pain? Suicide as a cry of what? Yeah. My mother educated me deep in Uganda for so many years. I come and get a degree. And Professor Maria wakes up one night and says, Dr. Mujisha, your services have been terminated completely. Hand over the keys in the next 1 hour and vacate Kyambogo with immediate effect. Then I go into crisis, isn't it? I go into a crisis. So if I'm not in what she talked about, good mental health, what will result? So we have this young boy who came to engineering building. He had failed to get a job. But he says every family member contributed money for his stay here. Then he goes back to the field for 3 years. And he was not getting what? A job. He said, I'm coming back here where I train and I do what? But I want them to know that I'm not stupid. It's because I failed to get a job and I'm a failure in the family. So why don't we look at that as a cry of pain? And should I be imprisoned for that? And nobody who has a cry of pain wants to do it privately. Some people want their pain to be known by others. And that's why they come to the university, which is a public place, isn't it? And do it because everyone will read about it and everyone will know about it. So why don't we look at suicide that way? As what? As a cry of pain. And to me, that is one of the most convincing models that can explain suicide. I'm not so much into risk factors. Because risk factor research has not given us anything conclusive. You said suicide is because of genetics. All the genetic studies, despite taking billions of shillings, are non-conclusive. Brain imaging that they want to show us the part of the brain that is responsible for suicide. They are all non-conclusive. But if we know that people have pain, isn't it? And they communicate and discuss it with others. And that's why she said, we need to get to them and get to give them psychosocial support. A suicide is a cry of pain. That is message number one. Message number two. Why don't we also look at suicide as a communication of vengeance? I'm sorry to use my boss as an example all the time, but she will bear with me. I'm a naughty boy. If Professor Maria chases me from my job, and I know she has bodyguards, so I cannot slap her, I can choose to die and my spirit haunts her. You've seen army men and policemen. When they get frustrated with their bosses who take away their women, what do? They shoot. So why don't we also sometimes look at suicide as vengeance? As what? I've been in northern Uganda doing a lot of work on suicide. And women there say, for them they don't leave marriages. But the man gets you at the age of 15 and terrorizes you until you are 50. So the only way to deal with him is to die, and your spirit haunts him. Those are the communicative aspects of suicide. There are so many things that people want to communicate in terms of vengeance around what? Suicide. And there are so many of these examples now in northern Uganda and in Teso. I also found it in medical school here among students who are Baganda. And I was asking them, if you commit suicide, what do you want to communicate? Then they say the spirit of a woman is weak. But when you die, you become stronger, times 10. So that means that you can tackle the person who has been terrorizing you. And we are traditionalists. Why I go to the shrines is not because I want to offend these people. But 80% of my patients are in the shrines. So if I don't go there, I miss the 80%. So I go there and we negotiate. I negotiate with them. I got surprised. I did an intervention in northern Uganda. And I recruited 350 spiritual healers. And I told them it is okay to take this tablet, but also do your other chemistry. The outcome will be very good. They took one night and slept very well. After 2 weeks, they were sleeping very well. And then they reported to me that after 4 months, all their women were reporting to be pregnant. Do you know the outcome of it? The spiritual healers took all the medicines that were supposed to be for the drugs, not for the community. And I had a problem. You brought an intervention for the community, but your workers have taken the drugs. I come to Dr. Shida here, your friend. He says, let me organize an emergency for you. So it took me a lot of the negotiation with the donor to allocate now money for purchase of drugs. So it's better to do what we call a co-cultural construction between modern and traditional perspectives. I like the president when he said, for him, he is more interested in those who speak against him because he wants to bring them here. So you can go to the shrines and achieve a lot. Now, the other issue that I want also to talk about as the third, I'm left with only one. What if suicide is a communication of pathology? This girl at one time wrote and said, one time you referred to me as rest in peace, Joe. Some people don't want to say the word death. I have a boy who keeps on cutting his neck. I didn't come with the pictures. But tells me, when he's okay, he cannot do it. But when the voices are telling him to cut, he doesn't fear. And that's what this lady told you. We need to treat mental disorders. We need to treat mental what? Disorders. Sometimes people commit suicide. They jump because something is telling them to do what? To jump. Sorry. So if suicide is a communication of psychopathology, if it's a communication of general malaise, and that's why I look at you, something has told me to jump. When I survive, then why do you take me to court? I didn't jump myself. I had no choice. With modernization and education, what if I wake one day, I'm not sick, I have no pain, I have no what? But I choose to just exit the world as a right. You know, I used to be in church. When people go to churches for only contact, but not spiritual commitment. And then the increasing knowledge of rights because of education, that I have a right to live. As a complex what? Malaise. And I'll use the words of Sneijdsman, the father of suicidology. He wrote so many books. But he got frustrated that even at the age of 93, he confesses he never understood suicide. He's written all the books that I use for my PhD. If you do a PhD in suicidology and you've not quoted Sneijdsman 50 times, you can't get a PhD. And he was so disappointed with God that even after investing a lot of time, brain power, to 93 years, he never got to know it. One of the most obvious things is that suicide is a very backyard issue. Backyard what? And in most cases, people give us the normative. I want to die because a girlfriend. It's easy to explain. I want to die because of a date. It is easy also to do what? Me as a clinician, I work with patients for 3 years. And the causes of their suicide keep on changing every 6 months, or even 3. Then after 3 years, I asked them, the first attempt, what was the issue? I said, Musa, that time I deceived you. We had not talked for long. The real issue was not my wife, but I had stolen a car at Kalerwe. And I know this time I'm finished, that they are going to ban me. I came here to the hospital to get a hospital number, such that in case they take me to Zira, at least I have something to hold on to. I never tell somebody this case has died. They didn't apprehend me for the last 10 years. So suicide is so much of a backyard issue. I've been seeing in the papers like today, police is saying, Yeah, we are going to investigate and tell you the cause of the death of this girl. I pity them. I don't want to call them ignorant, but I pity them. They lack training in suicidology. It's not as simple as you think that this girl is, you are going to go there. Let me give you a simple example. We went to northern Uganda and did what they call psychological autopsies. We wanted to find out the death of suicide by one individual like this gentleman. We could interview 9 people, but we'll get different explanations. The same 9 people that were moving with the person, the relatives, we could not get there. That's how complex it is. That's what I've said. So if we look at it as a complex malaise, and then because it's complex, then it becomes multifactorial. What? Factorial. To explain one suicide, you'll have 20 factors, all contributing to one thing. Being a school dropout when you were young, not so? Having an abusive husband, now loss of employment, you understand? Coming to Kyambogo and Mujisha, they didn't give you a retake. Then in the evening, the boyfriend intoxicates you with alcohol. Then the second one impregnates you. So you see how multifactorial it can be. So suicide is a complex what? Malaise. That is multifactorial. And some of the factors that contribute to it are bidirectional. They reinforce each other. Is it the early pregnancy? Is it now the retake? Which one is more painful is difficult to know. So we cannot understand it by using one what? Factor. So we need to sit and understand all those complicities. And lastly, I liked her humility. When she said, I'm going to give you so many strategies for management and so many strategies for prevention. So because it is multifactorial, therefore the management and prevention should be multidimensional. I hate it when I hear the simplicity. We cancelled him, then why did he die? We've been told about Jesus, including myself. I'm the most immediate neighbor to the church, but I'm not born again. We cancelled him. But he chose to die. Let him die. When the bishop visits the church, he eats food from my place. Because I'm the most immediate neighbor and I'm able. You know, professors of today are no longer very poor. So, what is it? If me, I've listened to the gospel for over 40 years, but I'm not born again. So, counseling will be part of the story, isn't it? Drugs will be part of what? Control means authority will be part of the story. She talked about the academic stress will be part of the story, isn't it? So we need to put so many things together. So many what? Things together to help one suicide. To help what? And that's why they call it an abyss. It's a bottomless pit. It's an abyss, bottomless pit. Now, my last statement is one. Despite the global interventions for decades, suicide rates were going up. Suicide rates were going what? Including control of arms, including control of pesticides, like in countries like China, including psychosocial interventions, and also massive treatment of people. The suicide rates were going what? High. But then we see in the last 10 years and 6 years, globally suicide rates are going what? Down. And we don't have an answer to that. Reverend here will say maybe God is intervention. We don't have an answer to that. We are saying suicides are increasing in Kyambogo. But maybe the population of Kyambogo is also increasing. When I was growing up, I first saw a dead person when I was in P6. I didn't sleep for weeks. Now dead people are everywhere because we are many. Isn't it? Suicide is increasing, just because we are also so many. And the larger the population, the higher the prevalences, isn't it? That's what we study in epidemiology. Now, my last message is, this thing that you're talking about, hope, is very important. And we need to restore hope, isn't it? And that's the only solution to prevention of what? Because I said suicide is caused by patability. By patability. But patability removes hope. Patability removes what? Hope. How a wonderful invitation that you made for me to have such a favor to talk to such a large audience. Because suicide itself is a backyard issue. When I want to do research on suicide, police tells me I want to make people to commit suicide. When you talk about it, you invite them to do it. So can I say you invited us here to commit suicide? How you can go to police and also educate them? It becomes a very big problem to my parliament of Uganda to channel resources to this area. Because they are so judgmental. They say people choose to die. So why do we bother about them? Why should we spend on them? So how I wish, who is the counselor? That all of us wake up today and have a commitment the way I have told you, that I'll never leave suicidology. And each one of you joined suicidology with a mission to restore hope. Thank you very much.
One more time, a round of applause for Dr. Mugisha. This is what I promise you.
pray, then lay hands. Now, in the male ward, one of the cases we found, the guy was not moving. He was just like almost, I don't know. But after we had prayed, he signaled the caretaker and said, I want to talk. So he gave us his story and gave us his why he's there. And he actually told us, I was attempting suicide and I failed. So I'm now here being treated for the poison that was supposed to kill me. So I said, this is a very serious problem. We are going to talk about suicide in Kyambogo, and here is a survivor. We need to pray for that one. We had to pray more and give and spend more time. So we thank God he survived, but I hope he won't be arrested, according to our moderator. Well, maybe he needs an advocate like Professor Mujisha here. And then in the recent times, our Diocese of Kampala has been organizing some talks to help clergymen. And the topic of burnout has been coming out. Burnout. That's stress, then depression, burnout. And the bishop told us that one time, the issue of burnout caused a priest to commit suicide. Now I'm using words carelessly, Dr. Mujisha. Bear with me. The priest went and jumped and threw himself in River Nile and jumped to his death in the river. So it's good that we have this opportunity for us to talk about this matter and mitigate the causes and talk ourselves out of it and affect the situations which affect people. So I want to now come to some of the things I read in the Bible, which I read quite often, and also somehow relate with Dr. Mujisha, who was, almost convincing us that suicide may be okay. He almost tried to convince some of us to say that it's not that bad. Very stone ordered his armor bearer to dispatch him to avoid the suggestion that he had been slain by the woman who had thrown the millstone in Judges chapter 9. And there are other suicides like Prophet Ahithophel, who hanged himself after betraying David. And others, but these are stories, and Middleton feels this is not written so that a commandment can ensue. Thou shalt not commit suicide. Zimri burned down his house around himself after military defeat. Perhaps that was something you mentioned. He was at the end of his rope. Hopeless, empty, finished. And Saul also took his life. Then his armor bearer followed course. And Samson did an unthinkable, a very engineering feat of pushing down a stadium with the might that had now been restored in him. And he not only killed many, but also killed himself. Or went down the road because of that. Then the controversial one is Judas Iscariot. That one is controversial. Judas Iscariot. That one also. Now, this writer said, for Judas, it was even repentance, He was remorseful for what he had done. In fact, that suicide, he almost commends it. Said this was good. He was showing repentance. But I had a few issues with his thesis, because all these suicides, all these taking one's life, result from sin or disobedience or something which God disapproves. And towards the end, I'll give you my opinion. However, we also go ahead and find that the Bible and the record of these people taking suicides are, these are there with the commandment in Exodus 20:13, you shall not murder. Thou shalt not murder. I love the law because the law differentiates murder from manslaughter. Now, those are technical things. Murder vis-a-vis manslaughter. And Dr. Mujisha thinks that most suicides are manslaughters. The person is either out of there, because that's how manslaughter is investigated. Were they in their right state of mind? Did they have malice aforethought? And all those things. But these are things for us to consider. You shall not murder is a commandment. And Dr. Ruth Senoni talked about the fact that your life is not your own. That is true. Your life is not your own. Even at the end of the rope, your life is not your own. Even when you have a right. Now, that right to life which is not your own must be investigated as well. I'll give you a scripture for that. So, these are matters that we need to consider as we look at these matters of suicide, suicidology. But it's true that while this has been a problem and it's still with us, and as long as we are the fallen human nature that we are, and we are developing, perhaps the problem is still present, there is hope. The Archbishop has a quote that he normally gives us, that the end of the rope is not the end of the hope. The end of the rope is not the end of the hope. And we can preach that message whether we are believers in God of the Bible or we are believers in the shrines. The end of the rope is not the end of the hope. Somebody who has gone to seek some kind of intervention also has some hope. I don't want to talk for long. I want to now give some recommendations. Give some recommendations. In view of all that we have had, in view of all that has been spoken, what can we do? The number one thing I want to say is that, after hearing all this stuff, I know the counselor, Winifred, is overwhelmed now. She's wondering, can I manage all these things? But my first recommendation is that the counselors must be present. And when I say the counselors in this case, I am generalizing. It includes Winifred, the counselor. It includes me, the clergyman. It includes you in your office as a clinician. It includes any of us who has an office somewhere and you receive people, the warden and the guild president, and all of us need to be present as counselors. So the counselor needs to be present as a leader in your own office. And number two, the technical office that you occupy is important, and people come to you for those very reasons. But you should suspect anyone and everyone for mental health. Suspect your work colleague. Suspect that neighbor seated next to you. Look at them. They could be mental health patients. Yeah, and it is your role to help that not to become chronic. In the words of the clinician, it should not become chronic while you are able to, intervene and brighten the mood of that one. So suspect someone, and before you go into the deeply technical matters, how are you? How are things? And so help someone. Help someone. This is buttressed by Dr. Mujisha's thesis that this is a complex malaise, it's multifactorial, bidirectional, an abyss. Therefore, how can you expect the counselor to deal with it alone? How can we expect one public lecture, the first in the last 10 years, to deal with it? This thing needs all of us. So I will preach about it and I will teach about it. Do your bit as well, and let's handle it together. As I close, I want to read for you some words to just support what I have said from the Bible. In the Bible, there is a prophet who was going through the ideation of suicide. There is a prophet, a very prominent prophet. He's called Elijah. The man contemplated suicide. And his story is in 1 Kings chapter 19. And the reason I'm reading this scripture is to tell you that the end of the rope is not the end of the hope. There is hope, even beyond affliction. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he requested for himself that he might die. And said, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." Yeah, the man, and he lay down to wait for that to happen. But after that, an angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat." Some angel out there is ready for you when you are at the end of the rope. You could also be that angel to help out somebody whom is approaching the end of the rope. That is 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 4 following. Finally, I promise to give you a scripture which also reminds us our identity. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 to 20. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 to 20. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you, which you have from God? You are not your own. For you were bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body. Those are the few things I can say as I encourage all of us to participate in this very important work of saving our nation and our communities from this challenge. Thank you very much.
Still have one lady on the panel who is from Strong Minds. We have been talking about mental health, mental disorders. Recently, there was an article about 14 million Ugandans having mental issues. Her organization provides support. We want to hear from her. Please, a round of applause for Christine Nanyondo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this noble cause to talk about suicide, create awareness, and making sure that we end it. I want to thank the presenters for creating a love hope, those who have given us words of wisdom. At Strong Minds, what we do, we treat depression. And we from our presenters, they mentioned that risk factor number one is depression, among other risk factors. So most of our patients who walk into Strong Minds, they present with signs, with ideations. They want to commit suicide. They think about it. They want to end it all, as our professors taught us. They want to end life. So what do we do is for us to encourage people to seek talk therapy. Many of us were silently struggling with an invisible illness. We're in our lecture rooms, we're in our homes, but things are not okay. Physically you are present, psychologically you are not there. You are planning to end it because you've lost hope. So what we encourage people, go and seek support. Your close friend, talk about it. Go to a counseling session. I know it's not common. We want to be strong, but you alone, when things are not okay, when things are many, they will swallow you up. So we're encouraging people to seek talk therapy, seek attention, go to a facility. As many people always walk in, anytime you have headache, you feel not okay, we go into our facilities, we go to a hospital. Why not, if you are not thinking right, if you're feeling worried, you're feeling sad, go to a mental health physician and talk about how you feel. But what deters us from doing it? Because we feel stigmatized. And what I will encourage other people, the university and other policymakers, let us make mental health a priority. And it should be mandatory, people to get services. Again, what I would encourage people here, to go for screening. Because without screening, you are not so sure whether you present with that symptom. Go to a counselor and they screen you. They will ask you some questions. You get to know whether you are thinking about it or you want to do it. Maybe even you plan to do it. So screening is very key. It's because everyone here has shared that it's complex. No one can handle it alone. We need everyone's effort. So what does that mean? We call for support from family, from counselors, from other prayers to join into this struggle. Family is key. All patients clients we work with who are suicidal, family play a big role. Many of our family members, they can support us as much as other facilities, other counselors, the clinician can, but we need everyone's effort to come and support. At Strong Minds, we're available to support you because of time. If you're feeling not okay, dial 252. Our t-shirts, we have the messages. They will give you hope. You will say counselor. And also availing services to be available. On our radios, thank you so much, Kyambogo University, for creating this platform. Mostly, there are other people are talking about other topics, but when it comes to suicide and mental health disorders, we don't give them time. So, can we create awareness? If you've been here, talk to a friend. Maybe your friend wants to do it next month. Maybe he's thinking to end it all. So let us be there to support others. Give hope. People feel they've lost it. I have no tuition. That means it's the end. If I'm abandoned, I'm at 25 or I'm at 23, that will stop me from growing. No, let us give hope to other people. At Strong Minds, we're available to give you support. And also, refer people, involved in other prayers. We can refer to health facilities. Let the clinical pathway, the treatment pathway at Kyambogo be clear so that people can know, if I'm not okay, whom should I talk to? Whom can I dial? And people can be there to support you. Don't give up. We're there to support you. Thank you so much.
252. I'll repeat it for those who want to seek help. Make sure you reach out. So as we conclude, I'm going to take 4 questions. 2 are going to be from the auditorium. If you have a question, I want to see your hand up. To the panelists, there's one there. I'm going to come to you. Is there another one? 2. Number 3. The 4th one. Number 4. So the gentleman there in a mask. There's another lady there in pink. There's a gentleman in blue. And there is another lady there. Dr. Mugisha, before the questions come in, how do we strike a balance with how sensitive suicide as a subject is? There is a lot of development, yes. We can't stop there. We have to develop. People are complaining. The president is not working. The government is not working. It's one of the stress factors we have to develop. Secondly, there is the issue of the right. It is my right if I want to. But how about those who are going to bury you, who are going to say the special prayer? How do we strike a balance? If you can answer for me that question as we get the other questions from the audience. Thank you.
For detail, you look at some of my publications that I've written extensively about this field. There's no nation that develops out of policy. Or you cannot develop a policy of no policy. A policy of no what? Policy. The beginning of everything should be a national policy on suicide prevention and suicide management. She's a lonely woman now with little arms and little resources, tackling a very complex situation. And don't think she's the only actor. There are so many actors scattered, doing things. But countries must first develop a national outlook if they are to develop effective programs. So the policy and amending the law on suicide were much needed even yesterday. You understand? We cannot develop and go anywhere as long as we don't have a policy framework. And hiding some of these conditions under generic policies, it does not take us anywhere. When you talk about the mental health policy, suicide is just mentioned in a few lines. In a few lines. So how do you tackle such a complex situation? I can give you an example. There is a European Union strategy on suicide prevention and management. A European Union strategy. All the EU countries come together and develop a strategy and a policy framework for prevention and management. I always hear this simplicity. If you want to commit suicide, take him to Butabika. So that means that whoever wants to commit suicide is mentally sick. But if everyone had a mental disorder and he was supposed to go to Butabika, will be a burial place for everybody. We will have more than enough coffins in Butabika. But how come that the population there is in thousands, but people don't commit suicide? That's lack of policy guideline. So what are we supposed to do as a country? It's not defined. What are we supposed to do as education institutions? For example, you invited me here. Under which mandate? You used the Vice Chancellor to command me. The letter was signed by the Vice Chancellor. I might not think maybe I will not. Command me. Under which policy framework are you using? Or it is just passion and compassion and good kindness? We need something. Policies define interventions. Policies define resources. Policies define laws under which we operate. Does that make sense?
Very much. Thank you so much. My first question goes to you. How then do we create awareness?
Accommodate their unique and it should be affordable and acceptable. So once we have this, we can then be able to go ahead with mental health and you'll know that, well, I think I'm beginning to feel depressed. I think I'm becoming anxious. If you can be able to recognize that and you then know where to go, you can then be able to help yourself. And then finally, mental health problems have very significant characteristics which sometimes we do not study and we do not even recognize. Problems such as PTSD, problems such as anxiety, problems such as depression, oftentimes impact on the identity of a person. And the breakdown of that identity leads to hopelessness. Hopes have been dashed, dreams have been shattered, ambition has been severely restricted. Now, once we know what mental health problems does to a person, that is the time when we will know how to intervene. But when we just stop at saying, well, so-and-so is depressed, so-and-so is anxious, so-and-so is has PTSD, we will not know how to go. We need to know what mental health problems does to a person so that we can be able to intervene meaningfully. And I want to thank all the presenters. I want to thank James there for characterizing the complex nature of suicide. Suicide is a very complicated. Somebody with an ideation is completely different from somebody who has attempted suicide. And somebody who has attempted suicide is completely different from somebody who has completed. So it's a very complex nature. It's really, really, really complex. And I also want to thank Ruth. Dr. Ruth Senoni we met 20 years ago and we elected her to be the first president of Uganda Counseling Association in Mbarara. So 20 years looks like just yesterday. And I want to thank you for that. I can see you are still going strong. She defeated me for a job in Bank of Uganda and we went and did the same interview. So thank you very much for meeting you once again after 20 years. What a time.
Well, thank you so much for your submission. Again, reiterating what Dr. Mkisha said, a need for policy framework that will define the interventions, funding, resources, and quite a lot of things. There was a lady in, yes, your question, please. And to who it's going to.
My question goes to the media. First of all, protocol observed. My name is Tat Simba, a proud student of Kyambogo University pursuing a bachelor's degree in social work and social administration. Dr. Ruth talked about the role of the media as a strategy to fight suicidal attempts. But to me, I would rank it as among 1,000 ways to die. Reason why? Recently, we saw Canary Mungume tweeting on his Twitter account that Kyambogo student who did not know how to write an admission, or did application letter? Yes, application letter. So I'm like, okay, was it really necessary? He was inflicting emotional pain. I was expecting Dr. Ruth to talk about cyberbullying on media. So how can you rank media as a strategy to fight suicidal attempts, yet it is among 1,000 ways to die? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ruth noted that. There's a gentleman here, or someone who translate for us. Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Agea Tony. I am a final student doing social sciences. I am also a former GRC for special needs here in Kyambogo. And I have stayed in Kyambogo from 2015 to now. So I have seen many students in Kyambogo committing suicide because of stress, sometimes but I have been a GRC for some time, for some long time, but I have never had a disabled student committing suicide because I have been working very hard to control their stress and emotions. Now about the issue about development of building, high building structures. For me, I would like to suggest somewhere on the issue of the dean. Our dean he has communicated about development on tall buildings. Sometimes we construct those structures we don't put enough guards on those tall structures. So I would like to consult our dean and also suggest that should better whenever we are constructing those tall structures, we make a policy that all those buildings, they should have good guards which are made like a wire mesh, in a form of a wire mesh. We live along these ones which are in a horizontal way, but in a wire mesh, so that we can put enough protection.
Thank you.
So that people don't commit suicide from our buildings.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Round of
So
applause
I
for him.
think I beg submit.
All right, thank you so much. I will have two more questions. There was a gentleman in blue and the lady. Oh, you sneaked in, but
indeed I've sneaked in. Yeah, that's fine. So my name is Janet Kantalama. I'm a practicing psychologist. I've just been nodding my head. I just want to commend the team that has come for this public lecture. Our facilitators, you've done a very, very wonderful thing. And I was just urging students, if you're there and you're listening to what these people are saying, please take heed. Take heed that things are real. Suicide is real, you know. People are dying by suicide out there. So if there are any resources that are available to you, like this public lecture where they are creating awareness and actually educating you about suicide. Please take note and take heed. Then one last thing, emphasis on good mental health. Dr. Ruth talked about it. Emphasis on good mental health. That before we get into pathology or before we get into challenges with mental health, let us first try to maintain. Because everyone has mental health. If you have a head, you have mental health. And I'm using it mental health, not mental illness. So let us maintain our good mental health. Otherwise, thank you very much. I've enjoyed myself immensely.
Thank you. Let's please stick to the questions. I'll add some little time for you. The gentleman and the lady are the only questions I'm taking. There's a lady right there in glasses. Then there is a gentleman in blue as well. Okay. Just hold on. She has a microphone. Let her go first. Then we can bring the microphone to you.
All protocol observed. My name is Kirsten and I'm a second year student doing a community-based rehabilitation. My question goes to the Vice Chancellor, and I think the Deputy Vice and the Dean can help me pass the information to him. Why is the Kyambogo University prioritizing employing more mental health professionals like counselors on permanent status to address students' mental health issues and ensure that hope is restored, because mental health can only be achieved via a baseline of input in form of human resource, address the issue, set a target with the human resource which with implementation yields the required outcomes. For instance, at the medical center, there is only one counselor who is not employed at a permanent basis. Have we looked at the work overload that she might be going through? How she is going to reach out to the 33,000 students in Kyambogo? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mish, I'm not sure whether you will, since the Dean, the Vice Chancellor signed and sent you here by force, you're responding to that one. There's a gentleman, one last question, and then we can take the answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I observe the protocol. Brian Rakjuma, fourth year student, Food Science Processing Technology. One, I'd like to appreciate our speakers. What you've given us, yes, we've taken it, it's grateful. That message, we really needed it right away from the first COVID. But I have a question to our speakers. One of them will answer. A student who was, let's say a student who was paying, or she or her was caring for herself before COVID. We had a semester then, it was a 4-month semester with a 3-month holiday. That period would give a student time to go outside and plan and bring in some money. Post-COVID, we came in, a semester of 2 months, a holiday of 1 week, 3 semesters in a year, 3 hostel payment in a year, 3 tuition payment in a year. Where mentally would you leave that student? Then another thing, you're talking about mental illness. We're not tackling the causes of mental illness. Go in depth of drug abuse. Because recently I was at MOOBS, we had a public lecture there. They were just talking about drug abuse. Kyambogo through the Dean also talk about drug abuse. Drug abuse is one of the leading things that is leading to mental illness. Lastly, there is one thing I learned it last year, that in every negativity, could you see a positivity in that? If you're in the dark room, can you try to see some light? Don't say this is the end of me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Those were all our 3 questions. So, Mr. Ruben Tunomjini, you will answer for us the message to the Dean. Dr. Mksha, you've been saved by the bell. But Dr. Ruth, there was a question about the role of the media. That was one of your highlights in creating awareness, in sending the right messaging. towards the topic of suicide. How can we role play, because they claim the media is playing the bad role?
Thank you, my dear. You are very passionate about this. I could see. Yes, cyberbullying may not be one of the things that I pointed out, but there's so much information overload. There's so much coming out, and it hits you. I think the dean said he didn't see any death until he was in P6. But now we see death like every single day from your WhatsApp, which is not even invited. So at times it can cause a lot of trouble. So media is very, very strong in the messages that it sends. So maybe my appeal to you is that you as an individual sending out media messages of any kind, the media people who are professional in this, the university, PR, how they handle their messages is very key. Maybe you don't have any control over that, but you as an individual, for example, if they send you a WhatsApp, I've had several being sent to me, someone jumping off, I think she was in Dubai or something, jumping off the roof, and you saw the whole process, you know. Another one, I think he touched an electric something, and he was electrocuted and he fell, and you saw the whole thing, someone recording and sending that out to everyone. Now that's do I pass it on? Now that's me. I do not pass such information on to anyone else, not even to my husband, because it's not going to help anyone. So it stays with me. That's one way to help the world not to send such messages. But what about me who is receiving it? What do I do with that information? What if I'm the cyberbullying you are talking about? Where do I go for help? It's still the same thing. It all kind of pulls in together. That if I've been bullied online, I'm hurt mentally, I have a mental injury as a result of that hurt, where do I go? What do I do about that? How do I handle it? Secondly, it's important to know that the world is changing. Somebody was asking about, they are doing 3 semesters, they are paying tuition, they are doing all kinds of things, as if it is the problem of the Kyambogo administrators. COVID happened. Things stopped. They are catching up. So what do you want them to do? To give you a free education? Maybe that won't happen. So knowing that changes are coming, and they will not be pleasant all the time. You might lose your job. Dean here was talking about, if they chase you away. They've chased you away. That is a fact. You are no longer working in this university. So what do? Learning how to deal with things not going your way. They will not always go your way. And you see, this is what parents do wrong. They want every time for you to be having everything going well. You're supposed to pass your S4, so they bring the exams to you. Your S6, they bring exams to you. They go to the lecturer and they bring exams to you. And you think that's how it will be? Hey, you come in a bank and you steal money because you are used to having things done for you. You are chased away. Then what? You kill yourself? You see? Guys, we teach you to learn how to cope with new things. What is new? COVID is new. Oh yeah. 3 semesters is new. So what are you going to do? 1 week holiday is new. So you are not going to cry and say, government yet uyambe. You have to wake up and do something about it. All of us are in the same boat. It doesn't take only one person. Okay? So you want education. Yeah, you'll do it in 3 semesters instead of 2. You have a short holiday instead of a long one until things stabilize. What will happen in marriage? You get there and both of you lose your job. What will you do? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So things are going to change. Things are going to be different. We have to learn how to deal with different things. Things that are not going our way. That's one way to deal with suicide. That's how I look at it. I hope I've answered.
Thank you
your
so
question.
much, Dr. Ruth Senoni. I hope your question is answered. Mr. Ruben Tunomjini, there was a question of staffing here at Kyambogo University, especially now with the...
Sorry, there's something small.
Yes.
Journalists here, and I know they are going to...
Okay. Please.
I think this lady has them about. And one of the missing links that we have here, we've not trained them. If you go to Ghana, South Africa, journalists are being trained in this area. How to report about suicide and how to report about mental health. Now again, we have to go back to the nomenclature because I see you're not understanding this. Say, no, Dr. Mujisha, this issue of rights. I know journalists are going to say, Mujisha said it's okay to commit suicide. It's not okay. Suicide is not acceptable. In all circumstances. That's what Mujisha said. It's not what? Let us go into the nomenclature of clinicians. Suicide is not what? Acceptable. But I don't condemn it because it blocks the people from seeing me. When I become judgmental, then you can't come to see me, isn't it? You can't see hope. And that's why I'm trying to say I cannot be like a judge in court who will pass a sentence, then you will hope that person. So when I say that there are issues of rights, I'm trying to talk about that suicide is not acceptable. But once it has happened, I don't what? Condemn. I look at the right that people are trying to pursue. And then the other aspect about that right is the issue of responsibility. Because rights come with responsibility. It is also being responsible to your God. You just wake up and say, let me go. It is responsible to your children and your family, isn't it? You send. But if it has happened, then I accommodate you. Because I'm supposed to hope. Now, on the issue of, I've had students talk about mental health problems being available. And some of you are my students. I always tell you, guard your mental health. Don't take it for granted. Someone was calling me today for over money. I want to buy your land. I want to buy your land. I said, you might take me slowly. I want to protect my mental health. And I've warned you about those three crazies. The crazy for sex, the crazy for alcohol, and the crazy for money. Those three, they are killing your generation. And now don't say that we don't have manpower. We've recruited you today. No, so. You are 300 people. Whatever we've talked about here, you are going to disseminate it. Not so. Then lastly, me, I want to run away because I need to protect also the mental health of my daughter. She's still at school. She's waiting for daddy. You have GRCs. I've talked to our vice chancellor. He's very passionate about mental health, by the way. Professor Maria, you saw she came herself. Professor Naugom is so much baptized in this. So if you have GRC that you call the parliament, not like ours there. So why don't you put these issues on the policy makers' agenda, isn't it? Why don't you agitate? You are saying councillors, what, but you have a forum where we meet. In the Senate, we have even a Girudi president. Who is a representative of you. So this matter should come out very strongly. And you have a councillor here who can even write, books as big as a Bible. She can document these demands. I'm sure the vice chancellor wants to do something. Of late, he's always asking me, what can we do for Kyambogo community in terms of mental what? Mental health. He's very, very passionate. So let us work together as we maintain hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mugisha.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our dear student who asked about the staffing. We currently have 6 staff in the counseling unit. But as you know, we have a new structure which has provided for 7 more people. I don't know the ratio of a counselor to the ratio, but they can never be enough. But at least we are doing something. But also, in the dean's office, as you know, they are these people, who are they called? The mentors. They have been doing a good job. And you, indeed, as the dean said, we send you as our ambassadors. Go and do that. It is not, you said one staff, things you said no. They are now 6, and we are recruiting 7. So it is, there is some, but of course, they can never be enough. We have mentors who are also mentoring and other things. Maybe before I leave, there is somebody here. You stand up. This somebody works with Uganda Breweries Limited. This somebody said that when he heard that we are discussing this, he also understands that when some people have challenges, they resort to alcohol, which he makes and sells. And so he has a questionnaire that he wants to distribute to you. He's not going to, since he has been here for long, get his questionnaire and please fill it so that he gets feedback as he manufactures what he does and sells. He also puts a component of saving us from these challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Please have one of those questionnaires and provide feedback. I'll now invite the Dean of Students to give us the closing remarks. I know we have stretched quite for some time. We're supposed to have finished by 4:20. We've gone quite much. So, Dean Mgomba, please come and have your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony, Mistress of Ceremony. I am Mugomba Francis, I don't know, I think let me say the acting Dean of Students. Good evening all. At this time, any point, when I've been asked to make some closing remarks, I'm only left with the alternative to appreciate all those that have been behind this activity. I will begin by thanking people from my department, that's the counseling unit, the public relations office, the medical center, staff from the medical center, the students, and members of staff that have, other members of staff from those sections that have not mentioned. I also want to appreciate the participants. We have a number of students, big number of members of staff. For the staff, I want to appreciate you and thank you for keeping here. There is a thriller going on at the East End football pitch, which you forfeited for this sake. Thank you very much for being with us. I want also to thank those people from outside who have been with us during this week. That is Lem. Lem, do you have a representative here now? We have Strong Minds. We have Blood Bank. And others that have missed to know. Most important, still, I want to appreciate our discussants. I think they are headed, I came in a bit late, but I think they are headed by Mrs. Dr. Senoni, I don't know, is that the right expression? Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. This is what we do in Kyambogo University.
And good enough, we've invited you to something that you're interested in. Next time we have it, please come and attend, come and give us information. Want to thank Reverend Dr. Reverend Engineer Dr. Mwesigwa for really accepting to be with us. I know you are very busy, and from that time you've been with us. Thank you very much for coming to give us information on suicide by taking the biblical side. Thank you very much. I want to thank the representative from Strong Minds. Please, attendants, take a note of Strong Minds. These are people who are concerned about universities and specifically what is going on in Kyambogo. They want to partner with us and increase on the staffing in the counseling session. There is a strategy they are trying to employ, which will involve many of you students into handling mental health. In absentia, I want to thank Professor Mugisha. He really excited my mind. I laughed. And in the end, I realized he was serious. In this talk, for attendance, bear with me, that we've understood the definition of suicide. We've understood that it is a mental health issue. It is a mental health issue that is sometimes blamable or not blamable. If you listen to these people's presentations, you must have got that. One said it is sometimes regarded as a sin, and in other circumstances, it's not regarded as a sin. But important is that it is caused by multifactorial issues. It is not only one factor that causes this mental health or suicide. And to curb it also requires multifactorial interventions. So please note that. But as I conclude, what I've noted is that the guidance and counseling session alone, the PRO session alone, medical center alone can't handle mental health. It is an issue for all of us to handle. They are warning us that whenever you are interacting with someone, be cautious. Be cautious and try to employ what we've learned here to understand and solve the problems that would turn into disaster. So on that note, I want to thank you, all of you, very much for responding to the call for this public lecture. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for the Dean of Students, ladies and gentlemen. And that concludes this year's 2022 Kyambogo University Public Lecture on the Anti-Suicidal Campaign. Very many things were said today, but again, under our theme, hope never runs dry. Seek help. Strong minds are here, 252. That number is in my mind. Dr. Ruth Senoni did say a lot. I don't even know what to pick on and what to leave out. But please don't become a statistic. And the gentleman with so many hats, Reverend Engineer Dr. Emmanuel, also had a lot to say. Reverend, next time when we have a conversation, I want to see how we can help that male, because for them they go all the way through At least the girls, the statistics are showing they stop somewhere, or we are failing at some point. And also they say that women, because we are so religious, we tend to talk to somebody, yet the men rarely talk to people, you know. So next time we shall have that conversation from there. I remind Victoria Bagaya Chigundu, senior news anchor and reporter from NBS Television. I did not work alone. I worked with a lady here, Alupo Masi Marion, Deputy Prime Minister of the Guild here at Kyambogo University. Do you want to say your closing remarks?
Thank you everyone for turning up, and we look forward to always working together with you. Have it at the back of your mind that you are not alone when you are depressed, when you are sad. You are not alone. We are with you, and we shall always walk the journey with you. We love you so much. Kyambogo loves you. Thank you so much.
All right, and I'll conclude it with a round of applause for our panelists. I'll start with the Reverend Engineer Dr. Emmanuel Mwesiga. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Our keynote speaker, lady with so many hats as well, Dr. Ruth Senoni. Round of applause. And lastly, the lady who had a very good message also as well. Help, where do you go? A round of applause for Christina Nanyondo from Strong Minds. All right, my work here is done. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
God, we look to you tonight.